On December 23, 2012, David Gregory, host of NBC's Meet the Press, held up a 30-round rifle magazine. The disdain in his voice was palpable. It was cheap theatrics designed to make a straw man argument.
This is a matter of logic, Mr. LaPierre, because anybody watching this is going to say, hey, wait a minute. I just heard Mr. LaPierre say that the standard is we should try anything that might reduce the violence. And you're telling me it's not a matter of common sense that if you don't have an ability to shoot off 30 rounds without reloading, that just possibly you could reduce the loss of life?
Notice that he tries to create a logical fallacy. He claims that the standard to be adopted when viewing the value of guns and gun magazines is that we should try anything that might reduce injuries. Of course, no one uses such a ridiculously low standard to assess the utility and value of an object. If the standard is that you should try anything to prevent injury, then everything would be banned or limited to the point that it is useless. Over 30 children drown in buckets in the U.S. every year. So, do we ban all buckets? Or, in David Gregory's version of safety, would people only be permitted to have really small buckets that are essentially useless? People injure themselves and others with knives. Even a very small knife can cause a life-threatening injury. Using the let's do anything that works standard, you would have to ban all knives. In the real world, we don't weigh the value of things with straw man arguments. Buckets and knives have great utility. We weigh the practical value that they provide us against the risk. There is both a positive and a negative side that is weighed. When it comes to guns, however, David Gregory and the liberal media see no utility in guns. None. They can't even bring themselves to consider that there might be another point of view. You could see it in David Gregory's face. You could see the open disgust on the faces of the media during Wayne LaPierre's news conference. The liberal media look at a 30-round magazine, and all they can see is the potential for death. What they don't see, or they refuse to see, is the potential for life. That is what law-abiding gun owners see. The news media see a world where civilization is always there. They see a world where the police are only a quick phone call away. Who could ever need more than 5 bullets? But when things get really bad, the government may not be coming for hours, days, or even weeks. When the thin veneer of civilization is stripped away, who will be there to protect your family? On April 29, 1992, a Simi Valley jury found 3 white officers not guilty of beating Rodney King. The Los Angeles riots lasted for 6 days. South Central LA was abandoned by the police department. Callers to 911 were informed that no police were available. In truth, it wasn't that there weren't any police, it was that they were overwhelmed. And so, when you needed the police the most, they refused to come. Before the 6 days of rioting were over, 53 people were dead, and over 2,000 were injured. It finally took the Army and the National Guard to put an end to the riots. During the riots, people were randomly pulled out of their cars and beaten. Looting was widespread, and businesses were randomly burned. In the midst of all the chaos, Korean store owners banded together to protect their stores and their lives. In the absence of the police, the National Guard, or the Army, they did the one and only thing that they could do. They brought guns. The result was that the Korean store owners who protected themselves with guns did not have their businesses burned to the ground. The store owners who didn't have guns lost everything. America learned a lesson. When things get really bad, the government may not be coming. When the thin veneer of civilization is stripped away, who will be there to protect your family? On August 24, 1992, Hurricane Andrew, a Category 5 storm, hit Florida like a nuclear bomb. 24,524 homes were destroyed. 101,241 homes were damaged. 3,300 miles of power lines were damaged, 9,500 traffic signals went out, 82,000 businesses were closed, 160,000 of Dade County residents were made homeless. In the aftermath, there was widespread looting. The local police were overwhelmed. Promises of federal aid were made, but after several days, there still was no help. Dade County Emergency Management Director Kate Hale famously exclaimed at a nationally televised news conference, quote, "Where in the hell is the cavalry on this one? They keep saying we're going to get supplies. For God's sake, where are they?" Unquote. In the meantime, homeowners formed neighborhood patrols against looters. Armed men carrying hunting rifles, semi-automatic rifles, and pistols protected themselves and their families. One person was quoted as saying, "Everyone had guns." Even after the army came, people did not feel safe. One homeowner was quoted as saying, "I have no choice. The only patrol we see is the army 2 or 3 times a day. We're on our own." Fortunately for the homeowners, they did have guns, and they were able to protect themselves. The media avoided this part of the story, although it is well documented. Once again, America learned a lesson. When things get really bad, government help may not be coming for days or weeks. Could it happen again? The real question is, when will it happen again, and how bad will it be? The entire west coast of the U.S. is subject to major earthquakes. From Southern California to Puget Sound and Washington State, the west coast is overdue for a level 9 earthquake. Unlike hurricanes, there won't be 2 or 3 days warning to evacuate or make preparations. Millions of people will be trapped in place in the affected area. Roads will be damaged. Bridges will be out. Like hurricanes, the local police will quickly be overwhelmed. Even if the bureaucracy can pull itself together, with the infrastructure broken, there may be physically no way to get aid to the afflicted areas for weeks or more. For example, there are over 4 million people in Puget Sound. Seattle is surrounded by water and bridges and is highly vulnerable to an infrastructure failure. Los Angeles is, well, Los Angeles. When the food runs out and people become desperate, who will be there to protect your family? When the looters are coming into your neighborhood and the police tell you that there are no officers available, what will you do to protect your family? Will you wish you had a gun? And if the looters are pouring into your neighborhood and your house is next, how large a magazine do you want to have for your gun? How many chances at life do you want for your family? Will 5 bullets be enough because David Gregory and the liberal media say so? Personally, I'd like to have as many chances at life as I can get for my family.